Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Steve Duvall, and this is Sedona.biz News. We have with us today Dr. Jerry Buley, president of the Sedona Area Guild of Artists, otherwise known as SAGA. Dr. Buley's background is in communication, and for 32 years he was a professor at ASU where he taught communication. Dr. Buley brings with him a unique perspective on the recent decision of the Sedona City Council to abolish the volunteer citizen commissions and how that decision could affect our community for years to come, or at least until the next election. Dr. Buley has written books on relationships and communication, urban communication, and with 3 other authors co-wrote another book on interpersonal relations. He has written numerous papers on the subject. Jerry? May I call you Jerry, or would
Absolutely.
you prefer Doctor?
I prefer Jerry.
Okay, Jerry. Good day. Good to have you here. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah. So, you are a professor of communication.
I was, yes.
Tell me a bit about that.
Well, I have always been interested in relationships, not only between people, but between organizations. And in fact, my master's degree was on organizational communication, where I did I looked at superior-subordinate relationships in the Michigan tax organization to find out how that was working. But after that, I went into personal relationships because I found that much more interesting, but more complex on a lot of different levels.
Well, you know, you're here today, and we're here to talk about the abolishing and the dissolution of the commissions. You've not served on a commission, but I think that your perspective is probably the right perspective to look at. The Sedona City Council and staff have a relationship with the people of the community. So rather than talking about commissions, let's talk about the relationship between the city and the people and how that could be impacted on their recent decision.
Well, I was interested in looking at this decision to try to figure out what's going to happen as a result of what they said and did. We have a situation. Let me show you a graphic, and maybe you can scan that later on. This is before. Here's the community down here, and we have the opportunity to elect a new city council every so often. So we have intermittent power in this situation. And then we have the staff over here on the left. And the staff are people who are not elected. They're hired. They probably don't live here in the city. They don't have a lot of contact with people. There's not a lot of communication, except that they exert daily power in communicating with the council. In the before situation, we, the community, had input to the commissions, and the commissions then distilled that information and passed it on to the city council. In the more distant past, the commissions had the power to do things, but as we have moved into the more recent past, the commissions have been denuded of a lot of their power. And so what we have here is a situation where we had this, but we changed to this. This is a situation where we have the city staff still enacting daily power with the council, and we, the community, can only interact with the council via elections. There really isn't a direct path to the council. There are ways of, we can each buttonhole somebody and try to communicate with them. I tried to communicate with one of the city council members and sent him a letter. He was very interested in meeting with me, set an appointment, and then didn't come to the appointment. That exemplifies the situation that we're in. We have no way of communicating with the city. Even when we think we might have an appointment to speak with them, it didn't happen. Now, this is just one person, and I certainly don't want to cast them all. I think everybody in this situation is acting on good faith. I don't think there's any malfeasance going on here at all. But I think people have different motivations. The city staff, not living here, they are people hired to make the city more efficient. And there are lots of ways they've accomplished that, but this is one of the ways in which they have touted efficiency as more important than city community input. We need to have that input. And in acting to increase efficiency, we are in fact creating a problem. even though the commission may be less efficient, they are a means of communication. Each of those people are volunteers. They live here in this city. They communicate with all of us all the time. And so it's not just during the commission meetings that we have input, but also when they talk to each of us as well. So we've got a real problem here. The city commissions are, because they're volunteers, are, how do I put this? I hate it when I go blank. I used to do that in front of my students.
Are you having a senior moment, Jerry?
Senior moment here. Forgot where I was going with that. I apologize for that.
Well, if I can make an observation that we've cut the community out of the government.
Except for elections.
Except for the elections, which are every 2 years. So we really can't speak. Or recall. That is a possibility.
Yeah.
Recall.
That's a pretty violent reaction to a decision. I'm not sure that's what we need to do. I believe that everybody's acting honorably in this situation, but I think the council has in some sense been misled, been so concerned with efficiency that they forget. Democracy is messy. Dictatorships aren't.
Ooh.
Now that's a pretty powerful statement, but I think that's the point. It's easy to get rid of things that are messy, things like city commissions, and think that you're accomplishing something good in the interest of efficiency. Maybe the city operates more with less money or something. I don't know, but that's not something that you should just get rid of because it's messy or it's expensive. You really need that, because what happens when you don't have that interaction with the community is the community loses trust.
Yeah.
We know what happens when people lose trust, and especially in a government. They start getting angry, they start acting out, start doing all kinds of things. And I'm not suggesting we should do that at all. But I mean, that's the natural reaction. In a situation where you have no communication, rumors become more prevalent. Those kinds of things can really tear down an organization. If we think that we've had rather disruptive kinds of interactions in this city over a variety of other things, highways and all that sort of thing, lights on streets, it could be even worse in the future because we don't have that direct link of communication. Now, one of the city council members has suggested that because that he didn't see the communication occurring the way I'm describing it. He thought that was not the way the commissions were working. I'm not so sure. I think the city council, the commissioners, were not only communicating to the city about things, but they were communicating to us. They were ambassadors of the city. They were talking to each of us and saying, the city's doing this. This is where we're going with this. And those of us who are in positions of organizational power would listen to them and say, oh, okay, well, we don't need to do anything about that because it's already being done, or whatever. It was a way for the city to communicate to the community through the commissions, because they would come to our meetings and so on.
I like your use of the word ambassadors, because really and truly it is. They provide an interface between the community and the cities and the government. So they really did play a key role. Maybe it was a little frustrating for some of them at times.
It was.
Because they're into efficiency, that's what their job is. But that link between the community and the government was and is essential.
Yes.
I want to just go back to one thing. I mentioned recall, and I really want to tread very lightly on that. That's one of our tools, but that's like drastic, last possible thing that you'd ever want to do. But it is a tool.
It is a tool.
Nonetheless. And going from democracy to a dictatorship, that's a pretty scary thing too.
Well, I'm not suggesting
However,
that they are a dictatorship.
I know you're not suggesting it, but that particular form of government, when you take the people out of the loop, it kind of does. If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, maybe it's a duck. I don't know. And I have a problem with using that label dictatorship and also using the citizens' recall as a tool. But we need to know what our options really are. Now the commissions are set to sunset on the 1st of August. We are now in the middle of July. Today's July 15th. So we have 2 weeks. And the council typically in August takes the month off. It's their summer break. So if there's any action that's going to be taken with regard to the sunsetting of the commissions, it needs to happen before the 1st of August or it will automatically kick in.
And as I understand it, I'm pretty sure this is the case, the city council is holding a meeting in the library before that date to discuss these kinds of things. And it needs to be discussed. There needs to be an open forum for people. The problem with that, however, is that each of us would like to talk for, or at least me, would like to talk for 20 minutes and try to tell these people what the devil is going on. But we'll probably be limited to 3 minutes apiece. And I understand why they do it, because there's going to be a lot of people there and they're going to make us sign cards and hand them in and maybe get a chance to talk. But there really needs to be more discussion here, because what's happened is not acceptable. This is the kind of thing that effectively will cause the people who want to be reelected not to be reelected if they voted for this particular decision.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a really tough one. I'm not sure that the meeting that's happening on the 18th, Wednesday the 18th at the library, with the council and the community will be the kind of dynamics that will allow a free flow of discussion. They'll, out of necessity, will probably have to do 3 minutes for each person to speak. The council will listen as they do when they're in their session. And then what happens? Will there be any decisions proposed? Can they make a decision? I guess there'll be a quorum, so there could be a decision. They could decide to maybe just hold off on this until they get back in September. That will provide a month
buffer.
of cooling, but it would also provide some time for people to really think and consider this thing. So let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Exactly.
So Jerry, let's go back to these graphics. There's the after picture that you had created. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay, here's what we have in this situation. We have the staff, again, that has daily contact or power, enacting power with the city council. And we have the community down here that it can only vote, so that's their only pathway of communication. And then we have this new system where they're suggesting that the city council will have subcommittees, so to speak, of citizen volunteers. So here what we have is the community elects and in fact hires the city council. The city council hires the staff, and then the staff is over the community. That doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense that in the attempt to become efficient, that we are now going to be subsumed under the staff as anybody who's interested in working with the city. That is not, it may be efficient, but it is not the right thing to do. People don't want to have a city staff person over them and decide whether they're going to be hired or fired or whatever, and then all that's going to be filtered to the council by the staff. Does that make sense?
It doesn't make any sense at all to me in terms of how people communicate. I had another thought about this too. The effect of dismissing the commissions, which is really what they did. They were dismissed. What kind of incentive does that provide for people to want to come back and be serving on a commission?
It takes a special person, first of all, to volunteer. There are not a lot of them in our society, probably more in our society than in others, but the point is it takes a very special person, somebody who wants to give their valuable time to help something happen in their city. If they believe in it, they'll do it. People like to help. But when they are effectively going to be in a position of having a staff member over them, that's somebody that's been hired by the council, and the council's been hired by the community, the loop is not right. Something's wrong there. The power equation is wrong. We need to have some sort of balance, rebalancing of the situation. I think we threw the baby out with the wash, basically. They didn't like the commissions because they were inefficient, they were Some suggested that they were in some ways loyal to particular city council people, and all kinds of things. The communication wasn't as good as they would like it to be. And yes, it's messy, but it's democracy. And that's where we got lost. They forgot that there is a losing of democracy by the cessation of the commissions. We need those commissions. We really do. We need to have that input to find out. We need to make decisions that are based on the community, not on how many people are there on the council now? 5?
7.
Seven people on the council. Just deciding, given input from a group of people who are not local. They have a different agenda, and I believe they are honest, hardworking people. I'm not trying to berate them, but they don't have the same agenda as the people in the community, and therefore they should not be in control over the council. And that's where we are.
That's a very good point. So one of the suggestions that's been made in this process right now, and I think this is what the people are asking for, is council, hold up, stop, don't do this, don't sunset the commissions. Let's sit down and go through the commissions one by one by one, find out what didn't work, find out what does work, and find a way to make this work using the same structure that they have now. Do you have any suggestions, Jerry, on how that can be facilitated?
That's a good question, and it causes me to stop and reflect. It seems like they started with a good plan, the way the commissions were set up originally. But over time, at least the Arts and Culture Commission became a less and less powerful player in the whole scenario. And as an artist myself, I find that, first of all, I find the whole thing a problem. We are a city purportedly illuminated by the arts, and yet I don't see anything other than attempts to create a new educational focus in the arts in the city through the mayor's visioning committee, now called something else, and I don't remember the name of it. That's the only thing that I've ever seen them do that's related to the arts. Our galleries haven't had any kind of support. The artists certainly haven't had any kind of support. One of the reasons why I started Saga was I felt that there needed to be a professional artist perspective represented in Sedona so that we could begin to take responsibility for some of the things that are lacking. A museum. The number of jet aircraft, private jet aircraft that land in the Sedona airport in the past was 500 in the last 5 years. In the last year, it's less than 200. Those people are going someplace else. They've got the money to do anything that they want, to go anywhere, anytime, but they're not coming here.
You know, I've noticed in my years here in Sedona that Sedona is unique. It's not a cookie cutter. You can't take a cookie cutter approach to municipal operations because it doesn't work here. It just doesn't fit. So to take the creativity, to take the art, to take the commissions and citizen involvement in our government out, it puts us, we might as well be in, if you live in Fullerton, I'm sorry, but you could be in Fullerton, California, or Tustin, or some other city that runs on the usual bureaucratic approaches. But Sedona doesn't.
No.
It's never worked like that. I've said...
Well, even the tax structure is different.
Yeah.
You know, for
it's
example...
upside down. The town is upside down.
Well, the tax structure in Sedona is such that all of our taxes, the bulk of the money that comes into our city treasury comes from the tourists that come here. And so that's been the focus of the Chamber of Commerce, to get more and more and more and more and more tourists here. But most of them don't spend much time, nor they spend much money here. Art buyers, on the other hand, have more money. They stay longer in higher-end resorts, high-end, eat in high-end restaurants, and they pay more money while they're here. All are good. We could have fewer art buyers and less tourists. if you will. I'm using that analogy because I think it's an important one to bring up, but I don't mean to derogate the tourists because they are important to us. But they pay the bed tax, and that bed tax goes to the city treasury. That pays for our police, our fire, and sewers, and all of that sort of thing. That's not true in Taos or Santa Fe. Taos spends all of its bed tax for increasing tourist infrastructure and tourism in general. That's a lot of money. It's something like $4 million. That same amount of money would be coming directly into our tax. So it's hard to make changes in that kind of a tax structure because we, the citizens, like the fact that all these tourists are paying for our police and so on. We've got to, in terms of regular taxes, we don't have a big burden as much as a burden, or it seems to me as much a burden as some of the other cities, especially the art destination cities like Taos and Santa Fe.
Yeah, they've killed the Golden Goose.
Yes.
They killed the Golden Goose.
Yes.
So I put you on the spot a couple of minutes ago. I'd like to return to
Okay.
that. If you have any
I thought I
thoughts at all.
avoided it, but
Not on the hot seat here. Maybe, perhaps you might have an idea, or maybe there's a formula or a way that the community can approach the commissions so that we can resolve the issues that are going on, rather than just throw the baby out with the bathwater. Perhaps there's some communication tools that these commissions can be empowered to find the solutions that they're looking for, to continue to maintain that connection between the citizens and the community and the government.
perhaps the current commissioners in each one of their commissions should get together and have a brainstorming session about how they could become more efficient but still be able to use and perform the duties of the commission. I think in particular the Arts and Culture Commission needs to have more to do. It has been effectively throttled over the past few years until we finally got to this point and they're just gone. One can wonder why all of that happened. I suspect, again, it's in the name of efficiency, but regardless of the reason, it seems to me that they ought to spend some time brainstorming some ways of coming out of this and still existing.
So, Jerry, in the closing moments that we have here, are there any thoughts that you'd like to share with us, perhaps reflections on what we've been talking about?
Oh, goodness.
I'm putting you on the hot seat
Yeah,
again.
I know. Again, I don't want to not say this.
I think this is a time for us all, not only just our conversation here, but the community and the government all really need to sit down and have some serious discussion
Yes.
about some things. I remember when Tim introduced the idea of abolishing or sunsetting the commissions, that he said, this is sacred ground and this is really tough. Well, we're in it. And we really do need to talk about these issues.
I think it's interesting that the notion of getting rid of the commissions comes from the staff. And there's no other input to that situation. And I think that's wrong. I don't know Tim, and I don't know any of the staff. And again, I believe they are all acting in their best, at their highest level of functioning. I think they're good people. So I'm not trying to say anybody's at fault, but we have different agendas. And the agenda of the staff is to run things efficiently. And the agenda of the community and the commissions was to try to facilitate communication with the council. And until we have that back, it's not going to be a pretty place to live. I mean, it's pretty in terms of the Red Rocks, and we all love them, but in terms of our interaction with the city, it's not going to be it's not going to be good. I suspect there are going to be a lot of fireworks in the future.
Jerry, I want to thank you so much for coming in here and spending some time with us, sharing some of your knowledge and your experience.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Steve Duvall. This is Sedona.biz News. I want to invite you to return back to the same place on our website, Sedona.biz, for more interesting interviews with interesting people.